visiting Germany for a Baptist convention in 1934, Michael learned about the Protestant Reformation. He, like Karl Marx, was inspired by what he perceived to be the revolutionary work of Martin Luther.
By now, you may know the story of Michael King Sr. traveling to Germany and learning about the reformer Martin Luther, and then coming back home, changing his name and his 5-year-old son's name to Martin Luther King. But what you may not know is prior to taking that trip to Germany, Michael, a young Michael King Sr., he often went to events that were put on, produced, and led by communists. Check this out.
Communists established numerous religious front groups, especially in the South, including the Southern Negro Youth Congress. A young Michael King Sr. is known to have frequented some of these communist front group events. He too espoused the so-called social gospel. When visiting Germany for a Baptist convention in 1934, Michael learned about the Protestant Reformation. He, like Karl Marx, was inspired by what he perceived to be the revolutionary work of Martin Luther. Shortly upon returning to the United States, he changed his own name to Martin Luther King. And then he changed his son's name to Martin Luther King Jr., but the family called him by his nickname, ML.
So check this out. It says, Michael King Sr. traveled to Germany in 1934 to attend the Baptist World Alliance Congress in Berlin. During his trip, he visited Wittenberg, the birthplace of the Protestant Reformation, where he became deeply inspired by Martin Luther's defiance against religious corruption, which ultimately prompted him to change his and his son's names. So I learned that the thing that interested Michael King most was the defiance. Martin Luther defied the way the church was handling things, stood up against the church, and reformed it, reshaped it into the way we do church today. So I typed in Google just to see what it would come up with. And I typed in, was Michael King Sr. attending events that were led by communists? And this is what it said. FBI surveillance files indicated that civil rights activist Martin Luther King Sr., originally born Michael King, attended meetings and events hosted by the National Negro Congress, an organization that U.S. intelligence agencies identified as having ties to the Communist Party. The Senior Kings Association with the NNC, an organization heavily monitored during the Red Scare for communist sympathies, raised concerns within Army intelligence and the FBI. Federal surveillance files, such as those kept by the 111th Military Intelligence Group, additionally noted his son's, Martin Luther King Jr., early attendance at meetings of the Intercollegiate Council led by Dorothy Lilly, who was also a suspected communist. So it makes sense for, like, back in those days, it makes sense for anyone at that time to if they were confronted with, are you a communist? It made sense to say, no, I'm not a communist. Back in those days, especially. Now, you can even come out and say it now. Oh, I'm a communist. Yeah, I believe in that. I believe in communism. But back then, it didn't make sense to say that you were a communist because that was really looked down on. You would get like one of those, a big red X pointed on you, and you would have just a lot of trouble that you didn't need in your life. So it did make sense for Senior as well as Junior to actually say, if you were confronted by anyone asking you, are you a communist? It made the most sense to disagree, to say, no, I'm not a communist.